Wow,
And we're live.
we're live. Okay, nice. Hey everyone.
Hi,
Okay.
Sabrina.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Nice to be
Good
here.
afternoon.
Welcome to our session. We're seeing people streaming in.
Great.
Super fun. Oh wow. Cool. Nice.
Wow.
So
Quite a number of
Nicholas,
them.
Haslinda, Jolene are here today. I'm not sure if everyone has read their profiles on our website, but yeah, we're super excited to have everyone on board. So we'll just wait a couple of minutes as people are coming in. Right now, yeah, we see quite a few coming in, and then we will get started. Yeah. Oh, okay. Panelists, are we ready?
Yes.
I think so.
Yeah. Nicholas is super ready with his mic.
He is so pro. Yeah.
Super pro.
I mean, it's for my podcast lah, but you know.
I'm sure, right?
Yeah,
You're
let's bring it out for this one.
Yeah, and we're also on Facebook Live. So, you know, if anyone misses any part of it, or if you want to share, share the session, we can go do that. Actually, I'm going to do that too.
Yeah, I'm going to do that now.
Yeah, I'll just quickly share this. And then we will get started in about 1 or 2 minutes. Cool. Nice. Wow, it's good to see some familiar names coming in as well. Okay, let's see. All right. Yeah. Do you guys need more time to share it on your Facebook pages?
Yeah.
We're all good.
Just give me a second.
Yeah.
It's
okay.
on the Calm Collective.
Calm Collective Asia. Right?
Okay, got it.
Yeah. So we're going to be live streaming the entire panel, and then at the end of the panel, we actually have a quick sharing session by Chit Ming Tan, who's Google's former Jolly Good Fellow, and he's also a New York Times best-selling author. So he'll be sharing some of his insights on how to cope with this whole madness, and
Nice.
you can actually find that on the website if you've registered already.
What a great official title, Jolly Good Fellow.
Yeah, I know, it's great, right?
It's brilliant.
Yeah, it's like, who are you? You know, what's your title? I am the Jolly Good Fellow. Amazing.
And then you break into song. Are you going to sing for us?
Yeah, I think so.
Yes.
He's a jolly. Come on. No?
Good.
Come
on, Nick. You've got the mic. You should do
it. Oh, man. Okay. Wow, okay. I think we're ready to get started soon. Yeah?
Yep.
All right. So I'll just do a quick intro, and then, followed by a quick round of intros by everybody. Okay. So drum roll. Hi, everyone. It's day 26 of Singapore Circuit Breaker. So congratulations on making it this far. I really feel like I deserve a trophy for getting through so many days of social isolation. 26 out of 56 now. So I hope everyone's been keeping relatively well at home. And if not, you have tuned into the right webinar. Yes. So I'm Sabrina, and I'm the founder of Calm Collective, a grassroots community for sharing mental well-being strategies and solutions for good mental health in Asia. We started this just over 2 weeks ago during the lockdown, and we're so glad that you are here today to join us for our pre-summit panel and for our very first online webinar. So we're super happy you're here. So thank you for being here. Today we'll be discussing the topic that's on everyone's minds these days. How do we keep calm or stay sane amidst the whole COVID-19 crisis? So we're really honored to be joined by Jolene, Haslinda, and Nicholas today, who will be sharing their own stories and strategies in coping mentally with the current COVID-19 environment. So before moving on to introductions, I wanted to share with you that you will have the opportunity to ask your questions to our panelists at the end of the session. So whenever you have a question, you can actually just share it in the Q&A box below. So you can find this icon just beneath. So yeah. Okay, all right. So I hope everyone's ready. So we can just get started with introductions, and maybe Jolene, you can start.
Sure, sure. Very happy to be here with my esteemed panelists, who I just met on Zoom yesterday, by the way. So very happy to be making new connections online, even during this time of isolation. The connections are still being made. So I am a psychologist, and I've been in practice for over 10 years. So I was trained in the US, and then I came back and I started my own private practice called Clarity Counselling. And in Clarity, I see a variety of people aged 15 to 65. So really the whole gamut, the whole lifespan. And so a lot of the presentations that I see are, anxiety, depression, PTSD, as well as mood disorders. Yeah. So I think later I'll be talking about maybe the two categories of people that I'm most concerned about during the lockdown. So I'll get into that later. Yeah, super happy to be here and ask all the questions that you need.
Yeah. And maybe Haslinda?
Hi everyone, and I want to congratulate Sabrina for this very good initiative that is timely, I feel, and I'm glad to be part of it. I'm Haslinda, and I'm 49 years old with 3 daughters, and I am a fitness instructor and certified personal trainer as well. I founded FitFab 6 years ago, as I wanted to encourage more Malay Muslim ladies to get healthy and to actually take care of their health and and as part of their self-care. And I find that the correlation between fitness and mental health is quite important, it's quite direct. I've also met clients who suffer depression of all kinds of levels. Some are not so serious, some are just starting. And when they choose to focus on themselves, especially fitness, I find that they do become more positive with themselves, and somehow they manage to find a support system in my movement to actually lift themselves. And I think exercise and fitness cannot be underrated. Even though we are in a lockdown at home, there are many things that we can do. And even for me, I struggled in the first few weeks to actually find a routine that is suitable for myself, because I'm so in love with the gym. I'm a gym rat. So what do I do at home? So I just would like to share with all of you what we can do at home, in the comfort of our home, to stay healthy physically and mentally.
All right, thanks. Nick, you want to share?
Yeah, sure. Hi everyone, I'm Nick. I'm suppose I'm coming here and speaking as someone who has experienced mental health issues before. I suffered from clinical depression for slightly over a decade. Have since recovered, and hopefully I can share my personal experience and some insight on that. I'm also the founder of Ekho Academy, and basically it's just a media platform where I interview people from all walks of life, from Olympic athletes to CEOs, and to kind of just curate and narrow down some tools and strategies that they've perfected, that we can learn from, so that we can implement in our lives, so that we can make our lives a little bit better and, improve the quality of it. So yeah, happy to be here. Hopefully I can share both my insights and the things that I've learned, and can benefit the people who are here today.
Yeah, thank you so much, Nick. I'm super happy that everyone is, here and on board with us and supporting, the webinar and sharing today. So maybe to get started, maybe, I would really want to know how everyone has been feeling, especially since it's been 26 days since the circuit breaker has kicked in. How has daily life changed for you since the lockdown started? Anyone, whoever wants to start? Maybe Jolene again?
I feel like I think the first week was all about adaptation, because this is definitely a deviation from how we live our normal lives. And I think when we're really starting to adapt to this is the new normal, there's a huge kind of like a steep learning curve in the first week, where we're really adjusting to, okay, this is how life is going to be right now. And trying to replicate the structures that have collapsed, right? So I think a lot of us are facing the collision between our work life and our personal life, and when these two worlds collide, either it goes really well or it doesn't go well. Or some days it does go swimmingly well, and other days it's just a huge mess, right? And so right now, I think past the 3-week point, I'm happy to say I have adapted to the new normal and trying my best to live, each day mindfully, the best that I can. But obviously some days are going to be better than other days, just like, when we were business as usual, we've also had good days and bad days. And the similar thing is going to happen now as well. So I think when the lockdown or the circuit breaker, was extended, people again went through another process of adaptation. I had a few clients who expressed surprise or grief about the fact that, this was going to be the total amount of circuit breaker was going to be closer to 8 weeks, right? About 56 days, right, Sabrina? So about eight weeks. And, we've never had to do this before, right? For many of us, it's the first time in our lives that we are in such close proximity to our loved ones for such a long period of time. It's called, I think a nicer phrase to use would be called enforced closeness, enforced closeness.
That's good.
Yeah, so we're gonna, I think it's gonna be a continuous period of adaptation. And when we come out of the lockdown, I don't think it will be a, complete black or white situation. I'm pretty sure it's going to be a gradual process. Yeah. But, people have also expressed anxiety about the re-entry into the everyday routine. I've got some really introverted clients, and I'm an introvert myself as well. So I completely relate, like, everybody's going to want to catch up and I don't want to catch up. Can I say no? Can I say no to my social events post lockdown? Yeah. And so I think that is a re-entry is another form of adaptation that we have to kind of prepare for. Yeah.
Definitely. Like just having to adapt to everything has been a big challenge, and for us. So maybe, I don't know, Haslinda or Nick, how have you adapted to this whole time? Haslinda?
For me, I'm forced to not to be too active because my work involves working out with clients, training them physically, moving around. So it was quite a shocker to actually just stay home, and initially there was no talk about virtual classes yet, and like how are we gonna do anything, right? And also I work out every day, and that's my routine. So it was actually a very big shift in change. But the irony of it was when I realized that I have to stay home and be at home and work from home, I actually realized that I actually need this respite. I actually need to slow down. And I didn't realize until I actually had to slow down that I was actually exhausted. And for me, because I am quite obliging in terms of trying to fit into my client's schedule, because I know some women need to exercise for certain reasons, for their health and for their sanity. And I do bend backwards for them actually. And I've been actually, since beginning of 2020, my schedule has been crazy and so crazy that I wonder what, I'm getting into a rut. And then when this happened, I actually realized that it's time to take stock of my life. And that's how I look at it. And like what Jolene said, I had trouble to settle down in the first 2 weeks because I find I'm too free. And my work is actually, I have to physically get involved. And then I realized that I really can do something via virtual classes. And I also really look at how I'm running my business, my FitFab movement, and my business, which is also media. I do social media marketing. And I realized that I really have to look at how I run my work and how I juggle my family life. So getting less active is a problem for me because I'm used to going, I'm always up and about. Then I had problems trying to do home workout, which I find is not the same intensity. But then again, like Jolene said, I realized I have to just get into something, replicate a routine. So I do get up still the same time, get dressed, be in my gym wear, and actually work out at 8 a.m., which is my timing for my gym. And I find that is very comforting to know that, and we know exercise releases endorphins. I do feel good, and then after that I will set up my work, whether it's Zoom meetings or virtual classes, and slowly it takes on. But I realize the importance of technology because I'm not an IT person. I kind of find IT quite intrusive and all that, but now I find that, hey, thank God, because we need to get connected to stay connected in this time. It used to be you need to disconnect. But now it's a different ballgame.
And we're actually connecting to, reconnect with other people, right? So Yeah,
And I'm knowing
finding
more
that.
people like you guys, and I'm glad. And this is
Yeah.
supposedly I'm supposed to be social distancing, but
Yeah,
I find that there is something good to learn from it.
yeah, definitely.
Mhm.
How about you, Nick? What have you,
Yeah.
I don't know, how has it been for you, and, you know, what opportunities have opened up, or like what have you, you know, how has life been in general from the start of the
Yeah.
circuit breaker?
Yeah, for sure. I think what Jolene said definitely resonated, and that's the process of adapting to a new experience, right? Because I mean, myself and I suppose everyone, I mean, we all have a fixed set of objectives and goals
Yeah,
in the day, regardless of whether we
mm,
are stuck at home or outside, right? But I
yeah,
think learning to do different things to achieve that same objective and goals becomes the goal in itself for me personally, because you know I can't go out to to interact with clients, or I can't even probably go out and go for prolonged exercise, and because I get my motivation from working out with groups of people rather than individual, right? So I think these things have been a little bit hard to adapt to, but I think over time you just learn that you just have to be patient with the process and just allow yourself that opportunity to find that balance and flow. And I
yeah.
mean, 3 weeks in, eventually you'll get it right. And I think I've finally been able to get it right. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I think it's that being patient with the adaptation process that's really
Mm,
important.
mm. So Nick, maybe can you share more about, like, you know, for, and especially for, so I'm not sure if every so my background is also one that's kind of similar to yours. I've also gone through dealing with mental illness and you know, things like depression and anxiety. So I just wanted to find out for Nick, maybe how has it been for you, you know, in terms of managing your mental health during this time, and has it been different before the lockdown versus now?
Yeah, it's funny because many people ask me that because they start to
Yeah,
get worried, right? They're like, "Oh, Nick, how are you doing?" But I
me
think
too.
I'm just in a different place now.
Yeah,
Now that I've overcome it all, I think a lot. Maybe it's not fair to say that because it's assuming that no one else is mentally strong or resilient. But
mm-hmm.
I think I've gotten to a place where I'm more comfortable with my mind and
Yeah,
how it responds to changes and
yeah,
difficulties. And so for me, this circuit breaker wasn't really something that was difficult to adapt to. I think what was more challenging for me is just the uncertainty of what the future holds, right? Because
mm-hmm.
I think there's a lot of moving parts here, because like everyone is working from home, and you don't know what the job market, or whether
Yeah,
your job will be available to you in the future, because if companies find themselves losing a lot of revenue,
mm-hmm.
that ultimately results in cost cutting measures,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
So that seems to be inevitable. And so I think that there's this unavoidable uh, wonder or worry about whether your job will be
yeah,
safe from all of that. And also the fact that, now that everything can be done remotely, that's good. People will learn to realize that maybe you don't need that many people. So I think
yeah,
for me personally, I think that's been something that I have to realize, like, it's outside of my control for now, to try and
mm-hmm.
push that
Mm-hmm.
aside. That I think is consumes more of my brain space than the regular
Yeah,
mental health issues that I used to suffer
yeah,
from in the
yeah.
past.
Yeah, I think that's definitely something that I've seen, you know, for myself and like friends around me. You know, a lot of people are now worrying about, okay, what's the world gonna look like after this whole
Gotcha.
virus is done? I don't know, or even now, right? Because the economy, you know, there's a lot of news on, okay, a recession is coming, or it's here already. A lot of jobs are gonna be lost. So obviously, you know, anxiety is a big issue right now, and it's definitely coming up for a lot of people. Maybe Jolene, are you seeing that amongst your clients, and how are you helping them during this time?
Yeah, definitely. I think overall, there's a recognition that we're all living under this sort of what I call ambient anxiety, right? So, I
Mm,
mean, even if your job isn't threatened, or you're fortunate enough to,
yeah,
live in a safe place, um, and you have enough resources, there is an overall sense of this extra layer of anxiety that we're all trying to cope with, and we're trying to adapt to. I don't know if people are kind of familiar with the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And, you know, he talked about the very bottom layer, right, is safety and physiological needs, right, like health and shelter and food. And, you know, there is a slow recognition of we are now operating at the bottom layer of the triangle. We are literally some people are anxious about their safety the moment they step out of the house, you know, because of the possibility of contagion, right? So that sense of safety is now being threatened at a frequency that has not been threatened before. And we need to recognize that. Yeah. So for me as a therapist, you know, there is a sense that, you know, it's a whole mixed bag of responses that I'm seeing across the board, right? So, you know, like Nicholas said, you know, he maybe has found a kind of a rhythm, you know, and he's adapted well to this new living situation. And there have been a lot of people that find that, hey, you know, I really appreciate the flexibility of not having to commute. I'm enjoying more time with my kids. I'm being even more productive because, you know, I don't have to worry about what to wear for work. You know, I can just, you know, go from my yoga mat to my computer in two seconds, you know. So there are people who actually have found ways to really kind of, you know, maximize the benefits of working from home, right? But there are two specific categories of people that I do worry about and who actually, you know, show higher levels of anxiety. One, people who don't have a safe place, you know, to live. So for whatever reason, right? Like for instance, if you have a very large family and living in a small confined space, you might not have the privacy you need to do your studies, your work. Or if you have existing conflictual relationships, you know, with your spouse or your kids or extended family, these tensions probably will increase, right? With these enforced closeness, all the underlying issues of the relationships will start to pop up because you got nowhere to run, right? So people might be facing more conflict in their relationships. And of course, you know, in the other extreme, people who are facing any kind of psychological or mental or physical abuse, you know, in their households, this is definitely not a good situation to be in, right? So that's one category of people that I do worry about. And then the other category, I guess, people who don't actually have good coping strategies, you know, yeah. So if you already have a pre-existing mental health condition and you don't have a good coping strategy for that, you know, the danger is that you're going to not be able to know how to cope in isolation, in prolonged isolation. So the thing about human beings in general, you know, we are creatures of habit, as you know, right? So if whatever you did before lockdown, you're going to do more. Okay. So we all turn to our familiar, comfortable strategies, right? So if you were binging on Netflix and spending 3 hours on social media prior to lockdown, my guess is that you're going to actually do more to cope with the boredom and the loneliness and the isolation. So it kind of depends, you know, if you've had healthy coping habits, I'm hoping that you're doing more now by like exercise or meditation. So it really depends. Do you already have a menu of healthy coping habits, and are you really putting this in place? Yeah.
Yeah. How about Haslinda? How about you, Haslinda? Yeah. How's what have you seen amongst your community? And
in my community, I see in my movement, most of them were so worried about their fitness regime. They had boot camps, they meet on Sunday mornings, they work out together with their favorite coaches, they have their small group training with their favorite coaches, trainers, and they don't want to lose that. And then when we were forced into going into the TV, even before that, gyms started to close, where the numbers of packs have to be outdoor exercise was only limited to 10 and below. They were already feeling the pressure. They were so afraid to lose this camaraderie and the momentum of working out. I think ladies especially love to work out in groups, and vis-a-vis men who, okay, they're on their own. So they find that they are so afraid to lose that. And I was worried for them because I'm more of them than myself. So after the CB happened, they actually requested for online classes, and it was more of an organic request that I have to look into and get into the IT of it and get it done quickly. So I realized I have whatever programs I put out, they still want to choose the same coach with the same ladies, and they want to meet there. And it's actually, this is the thing that keeps them going, or rather make them feel comfortable. And I realized this has to go on, even though it's only 5-6 people. Just do it, we just do it. So that helps for them. And of course, some of them have lost some kind of livelihood. For example, the home-based businesses in my community, a lot of them are doing it, and they've lost their sales for Ramadan, for Hari Raya, where the bazaar now is gone, and they have already invested in it. So some of them are going through quite a lot of hardship in terms of financially, and they are mostly women who are either single, or they need to help to finance a family with their additional income from this. So it is quite stressful for them. And I see a lot of things on Facebook, and it is kind of like some people, when journaling, they find this is a way out of the stress. But of course, how they write, what they write, how they express themselves can be, it's a double-edged sword, whatever you put out there. So it is, a lot of changes is happening. But because it's Ramadan, the irony is that we are, as Muslims, are supposed to be more patient and believe. So I think a lot of people go back to meditation, their religion, for comfort as well. And we have more time to actually get down to there. And so it is, well, that is what's happening in my community. And I think fitness still is very relevant in these trying times. And if you notice, a lot of home workout, live workout for free out there is just for you to choose what's your cup of tea, what time are you available. And some of them are very shy. They now can do it at home in their butterfly or pajamas, nobody knows. Go for it. And just by dancing, for example, it does wonders to your mood. It does wonders to your mood. And I mean, I've gone through mild depression when I had my third child, after I had my third C-section, and the state of my body, I was 20 kilograms overweight. My C-section scars was very hard to recover because I was older. And I found solace in fitness, and slowly going for brisk walking, dancing in my room when the kids are sleeping, the babies are sleeping, with my earphone. And that helps a lot, because I find that only you can help yourself to get out. Before you know you're going down the drain, you have to be very self-aware. And I'm glad I have that kind of coping mechanism. I know that I'm actually going down. And because I'm always a very positive person. So when something gets me really down, I know it is really a big signal for me to actually review things and self-talk to myself positively.
That's really good, Haslinda. I mean, I think it's really important. I guess something that I've learned during therapy sessions and my own journey is that it's quite important to be able to be aware of when you are maybe on a downslide, and being able to catch yourself early enough so that you don't slip further, right? So maybe this is a question for either Nick or Jolene, whoever wants to take this. What is, how do you identify if, okay, maybe there are warning signs. How do you identify warning signs if you have, say, for either depression or anxiety? And then what do you do about that?
Nick, do you want to go for it?
Either.
I think maybe this might be a question for you, because you can offer professional insight.
Well, you can give your personal take on it later, I guess.
Sure.
I want to give from both.
Yeah, me too.
Okay. So the interesting thing about, I think this is definitely specific to maybe a more an Asian context. See, so when I trained in the US and I came back to Singapore, I realized that people present with very different symptoms. And it's very much culturally bound. And a lot of times, right, in Asia, people will present first with physiological symptoms. So they might not have the language, because of our culture or upbringing, we don't have maybe the emotional language to say, I'm stressed, I'm anxious, I'm angry, I'm irritated, I'm annoyed, and so on and so forth. As you know, there are so many variety of emotions, right? It's very nuanced. So if a person is brought up in a culture that doesn't have the emotional language literacy, what's going to show up? And very often what I see is people with what we call somatic symptoms, right? I have a headache, I have gastric, I have, trouble sleeping, I lost my appetite, I have low energy, right? So, and interestingly enough, if you look at the clinical diagnosis of depression and anxiety, there's about 10 to 12 criteria that one must meet for, any kind of clinical diagnosis. About 40 to 50% of those criteria are physiological symptoms, So the thing to understand is that depression and anxiety not just lives in the mind, it lives in the body, And very often with my clients, I think a lot of the therapy that I do is focused on connecting the mind and the body, tapping on the wisdom of your body, right? If you haven't been sleeping well for a number of days or a few weeks even, your body's telling you something. It's time to be mindful, pause, and listen to what your body's telling you, right? Or if you're getting repeated migraines or headaches or feeling dizzy, obviously let's rule out all the physical reasons first, right? I mean, obviously if you're eating well and staying hydrated first, let's take care of that first, yeah? If you have ruled out all the physical symptoms and your symptoms are still present, let's really listen to what your body is telling you, right? So a lot of the work I do is centered on really getting people to be more aware of their body, because unfortunately, we not only do we live in a culture that is maybe not as accepting of mental health issues, right? I mean, we're working on that, we're progressing, but we've got long ways to go. But a lot of us, I think, take comfort in what I call intellectualization. We would rather think and analyze rather than feel, so we kind of like disconnected from the bottom half of us, right? And that is why I think the new wave of psychological therapies have combined mind and body, and they've been quite effective, So there's a lot of evidence, like Haslinda said, that, exercise definitely helps us to decrease stress levels because it decreases the levels of adrenaline and cortisol in our brains, right? Those two connected with stress. Meditation as well has been scientifically proven to be helpful to a variety of conditions, So definitely a lot of the new kind of like psychological theories combine the two, because now we know how important it is to tap on the wisdom of the body. And so I would say, if you don't really feel yourself, maybe take a moment to just observe your body throughout the day, even maybe have a sense of how high or low my energy level is, how's my appetite, how's my sleep, and of course, how's my mood as well, what am I thinking about? And this is what we typically call a mood journal, And so a mood journal is so useful, right? I mean, because like even when people come to me, I'll be like, okay, how have you been doing for the last few weeks or few months? And people are like, I don't really know, right? and so that's really information that is important for your therapist as well, right? To really understand what you're going through right now, we need to have some sort of information, some sort of data across maybe a few weeks or even a month, to understand, hey, that's what your body's going through, that's what your mind is going through. Yeah. Nicholas?
Yeah, Nick.
Yeah. So I think for me, I mean, this was way back in 2006, 2007. So yeah, I think I would definitely agree that, I mean, vocabulary is limited in terms of describing how you feel. I remember I felt my mood was incredibly low, and it was interesting because it's such a deviation from who I was, or who I maybe still am as a person. And also I was continually exhausted. But I think it was also because 2006, I was 18 years old, right? So because I didn't understand what mental health or mental health issues really was, I just assumed like maybe that's just the tail end of puberty, right? Because when you start puberty, you're all over the place. And then maybe this is the come down. So I didn't think too much into it. But then, once those moods became a permanent fixture rather than up and down, good mood, bad mood, and then the exhaustion just lingered, then you start to see it as a real problem. But because I didn't know that it was correlated or the cause was a mental issue, I didn't seek the help that I needed. So I think the most important thing I would encourage anyone is, regardless of how bad or how maybe how insignificant you think the problem is. I mean, there's really no harm in seeking clarity. You know, I mean, worst come to worst, you end up in someone like Jolene's office, and she says, "Thanks for coming," but actually maybe there's nothing wrong. You know, but you know, at least there's some assurance, and you know, you can understand that, okay, maybe there's something else. Let me figure out what it is. So, I would say, you know, try not to think of it as this extreme process of mental wellness and recovery. You know, it's just a process of fact finding and clarity, so that you can figure out what's good for your own body and mind.
Yeah, definitely. All right. So well, we're nearing the end of our panel. So I just wanted to ask all the panelists one final question, and then we will proceed to the Q&A. So you know, whoever's attending right now, if you have any questions, we will have some time for a Q&A section or session towards the end. And yeah, so the final question for everyone would be, so what is the one big takeaway or learning you've had from the experience of, you know, from experiencing the whole COVID-19 situation right now? Maybe Haslinda, do you want to start?
Okay, for me, for myself, I have to self-reflect on how I run my life and my work and my business, FitFab, for example. I realized that sometimes we still can do virtual classes, even post CB, for example. If I can't fit into my client's schedule and vice versa, it is a viable option indeed. When we did our virtual classes, our clients feedback that it is as good as doing with us, but provided they have the equipment, or we are innovative enough to create dumbbells out of detergents and basmati rice sacks and all that. So it can be done, rather than just thinking that you've got to be at venue A, B, C within an hour or so. So I think that that's one thing I want to look into. But I also learned that whatever it is, we need some kind of routine and we need discipline. I realized with the availability of Zoom as well, Zoom, we go from one meeting to another. It is so easy to forget lunch hour, rest time, and screen time. It's all over the place. And I realized that even clients may just call you during lunch hour or 10 p.m. or even on a Sunday requesting for Zoom. So I feel that if we are employers or employees, we try not to disturb them on their days where they are not supposed to be working, even though we know they are at home. You know, you get requests such like, Haslinda, will you be free at 1 o'clock? But where am I going? So of course I have to say I'm free, right? So I think we forget that people need the me time still, even though they are at home. We are not necessarily just lazing around. We could be cooking, and then our kids are HBLing, and then we need to go for a live session soon and blah, blah, blah. So the discipline at home, I feel, is more demanding because everything is within reach. You can cook one session and then can still be, you know, on the Zoom and stuff like that. It's actually quite draining for our mind if we don't have rest time and schedule in our rest time and meal times. That's why I feel.
Yeah, schedule. Okay, maybe Jolene? What's your takeaway on learning?
Takeaway. Yeah. You know, I think we're in the end of week 3, beginning of week 4. So for me as a therapist, you know, I am just really amazed at the resilience of the human spirit. You know, I think that really cannot be understated at how adaptable people really are, you know, and that sense that we are all really trying our best, you know, with the resources that we have, that we're continuously adapting and depending on our inner resources and our outside resources as well, you know, that, you know, the majority of the people are resilient, you know, can bounce back from adversity. And I continue to see that in my clients and, you know, the majority of the population as well. I do think that it is a good time for me at this point to remind, I think, our attendees and whoever's listening in, that, you know, the thing about resilience is that it's not a switch, you know, like Nicholas said, the mental health journey is not a button, you know, you turn the page and it's done, or it's not black and white. I think it's a journey and it's a process, and that is also how resilience is nurtured and cultivated. So even though you are having a bad day today, that doesn't mean that you're going to have a bad week. You know, it doesn't mean that if you have a bad week, that doesn't mean you're going to have a bad month. So that awareness that you have, that resilience, is going to bring you through that bad day and that bad week, right? The story that you tell yourself, the narrative that you tell yourself during the struggle is so important. So I do want to encourage people to treat themselves with compassion and kindness, to be aware that we're all doing our best in this ambient anxiety that we're all struggling with. We're all doing our best. And the best way to foster resilience really is to be compassionate, right? Not to be judgmental or critical to yourself or to your loved ones or your kids, right? So if you feel like your spouse is demotivated or your children are restless, your criticism isn't going to motivate them. Your compassion will, right? The same way yourself, if you're feeling you're having a bad day, your self-criticism is likely not going to motivate you. Your compassion will. Yeah. So I think this is a good reminder for us to, like Haslinda said in the beginning of our webinar today, to really pause, take stock, and also to practice more compassion to ourselves and to everyone around us.
Definitely. How about Nicholas?
Something I've been thinking about, I suppose, is especially during this period when there's so many changes, is that I suppose in some ways discipline can be a double-edged sword, because you're bounded by this routine that you have, that you're not adaptable to any sort of changes, and I think that can be just as dangerous as not being disciplined at all. So I think something that allows you to have sustainable discipline is that acceptance that you can also be flexible throughout this entire process. I mean, flexibility is just as important. When things change, it's really not an indication as to how badly or poorly you're dealing with the situation. It's more just okay, so this is the new normal. What do I need to do to calibrate myself to that new normal and to feel comfortable being in that new position? Because I think if anything this pandemic has taught us is that regardless of a pandemic and whatever is happening with climate change and all these levels of insecurity, it's very likely we're going to see multiple changes at different periods of time. So I think that ability to understand that your discipline has to be complemented with some level of flexibility to all these changes that you cannot foresee, it would be just as important. And that's something I'm thinking about and trying to improve in my life as well.
It is true. We have to be kinder to ourselves.
Definitely.
And my narrative is this: it is temporary, and we've got to just believe that it is a phase that we all have to go through together, and resilience is really, really crucial. I agree.
I think one big thing that we can all take away from this is definitely, to practice more self-care and kindness towards ourselves, or self-compassion. And if we all get through this, we are definitely all building resilience during this time. So thank you everyone. So now we're going to be actually answering a couple of questions, and then we actually have to wrap up before the next session happened at 2:50 actually. And there have been quite a few questions that came in for Jolene regarding like psychotherapy. And for everyone who, if we didn't manage to answer your questions, Jolene will actually be hosting a separate section next Saturday. So please sign up for that one, and we will have a lot more time to discuss the issues that you're facing right now. So maybe I'll just bring up a couple of questions. So I have a question here asking whether, does the panel have any advice for people supporting loved ones who are struggling with anxiety and depression during this lockdown, especially for the ones whom we cannot meet because of the circuit breaker? Maybe Jolene, you can start, and then we can all chime in.
I think that supporting a loved one with mental illness or mental health conditions at any point is a challenge, right? I mean, if you guys have gone through it yourself, just knowing a friend, for instance, who has anxiety or depression really takes a toll on us as well. If you really care about that person, you were going to be worried about that person. You're going to want to do everything to make sure they are okay, to keep them safe. And so I just want to appreciate that you do have the intention to want to help. Just want to honor that, first. I do understand that in this lockdown, you're not able to see the person, meet the person physically, right? So you're not able to reach out physically to, for instance, give a hug to that person or have a meal with that person. And understand that a lot of us might be grieving over the loss of social interaction, you know? So I'm not going to say that Zoom is an equivalent, you know, it's not, you know, it's not an equivalent, you know. We want to meet in person, we want to give that person a hug, but in these times we have to make the best use of the substitutes, right? Like we talked about replication of routine, the replication of social interaction is so important. You know, whether it's putting your phone, you know, just FaceTiming and eating dinner together, or watching a movie together, or playing online game together, just reaching out to that person and saying, you know, I'm here if you need me, you know, I'm here. And the thing about mental health is that some people sometimes don't have the words to describe how they're feeling. You know, like I said, they don't have the language, or maybe they don't want to talk today. I just want to stay in bed. You know, I just want to Netflix for 8 hours. Don't you know? Don't disturb me, right? So that's all human. And if your friend or your loved one is kind of like, you know, in that space, I think the most helpful thing is to just let them know, I'm here for you if you need me. You know, I am a text away, a video call away, and, you know, I'm waiting for you to initiate that contact. I'm here for you. That's the most helpful thing, to offer your availability without judgment, without, you know, don't rush to give solutions. Just be present and be that safe holding space for that person. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
I'd just like to add that I have a nephew who is undergoing clinical depression. He's 18, and I'm used to meeting him very often, and I also train him because he's getting back into the fitness. For now, I do talk to him via either video call, and I'll text him, and it's actually small talk of nothing that keeps them going. Like, what do you eat today for breakfast? You know, how was your day? And I think that I can see from the tone that he's trying to cope, but it's so important to keep the communications open, whether visually or audio. As long as they can hear, they're fine. And to keep things like as per normal as possible for them. I don't know whether I'm doing the right thing, Jolene, but that's how I feel, not to alleviate that, you know, it's a circuit breaker period and don't do this, don't do that. So I try to make things as per normal as possible. Like I asked him, how was your home-based learning? And then he would say, it's very boring, when we will have a good laugh. And I say, yeah, you know, I can't wait to go to the gym, and just go on. It's just small talk every day. Yeah. So thank God for phone technology. I don't Zoom with him, but I guess that helps. Video calls, you can see the face. Like, hey, you need a haircut, you know. But thank God soon, I suppose, we can go to the barber.
Yeah. Nicholas, do you have anything else to share about on this?
Not really. I think most of the points have been covered. Maybe just to add, I mean, as someone who went through it, you know, I suppose I could have been particularly cruel to to the people who didn't understand what I was going through. So having said that, like, I think it's also important for whoever's trying to help to, you know,
have
maybe
patience.
Maybe. But to not beat yourself up over the fact that you might be struggling to help, because you know, everyone seems to have their own process with dealing with life, and it's not easy for both the person suffering and the person helping in any regard, mental health or otherwise. So it's important to do what you can, but then don't feel like oh, I'm so inadequate because I can't help, you know. Not every problem is supposed to be solved by you. So yeah, you can take comfort in that fact.
Yeah. And not every problem will be solved at the right now.
Some just want to hear things out. Just want to have a listening ear provided. I used to think that I have to solve everybody's problem.
But no, I think everyone has their own.
Who's gonna solve mine? Yeah.
Oh man. Okay. So thank you for sharing all of that. Well, unfortunately, we've already reached the end. So we will have a lot more sessions and a lot more opportunities to ask your questions and answer the questions as well next week. So please join us on the 9th of May, next Saturday, and register for the talks if you haven't already. And if you have any other questions for our panelists, please just drop us an email at hello@calmcollective.asia. So yeah, I hope everyone's learned a thing or two from our panelists today. Thank you so much, Jolene, Haslinda and Nick for
Thank you.
sharing your insights with all of us.
Well,
Thank
we've
you.
learned so much from one another too. Thank you for
Yeah.
everything.
agree.
Thanks for,
Thank
thanks
you.
for organizing, Sabrina.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Yes.
everybody.
All the
Yes.
best.
Yes.
And good luck to everybody. Thank you for joining
Yes.
us. And
Thank
last
you.
thing, so right after this, we're honored to have a sharing from Google's retired Jolly Good Fellow, and he's also a New York Times bestselling author and Singaporean, Chet Ming Tan, on how to cope with fear during the crisis. So you can just go to our website right now, and it will actually be playing within the browser itself. Yeah, because he's actually in San Francisco right now. So,
Amazing.
thank you so much, everybody.
Great.
Thank
All right.
you. Send your questions
great
in.
Have a great weekend. Yeah.
All right.
See you
Take care,
guys.
everybody.
Thank you,
Thank you.
everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.